Welcome back to the Missing and Crawlspace subscription service show. What's going on? I'm Tim here today with Jennifer and Lance. What's up?
Take it away, Jen. Take it away. I feel like your voice needs to come in.
You're right. My voice does need to come in. So I'm doing wonderful. I'm wearing my Halloween fall sweater, which I'll be wearing all season. It's orange.
You literally put that on September 23rd, and it'll probably last until December 1st?
Till it falls off my body.
Same thing happened last year, too.
Yeah, so this is our subscription service show, and we are actually going to air this episode on the public feed on Monday, October 31st, 2022. So happy Halloween to anyone listening on Halloween.
The season of Samhain.
Yes.
Yes.
And we have now combined our two subscription service shows. We have Missing and Hidden Opinions that we've been doing every week for like 30-something weeks. And we also have the Crawlspace Crypt that we've been doing as a bonus show on the Crawlspace subscription service for about 30 weeks. And you could access these by going to missing.supportingcast.fm. Now, if you go to crawlspace.supportingcast.fm, it redirects you to the Missing one. So we've now combined the two of them. And this show is now a combination of the Missing subscription services Hidden Opinions and the Crawlspace subscription services bonus show Crawlspace Crypt. So
bear with us on this because we're figuring it all out. But honestly, I don't want to give like a big holier than thou speech right now, or we're better than anyone else, because we're certainly not. If we think that, then there's a big problem. Jen just gave a look like we might be, but listen, the listeners, the listeners who support us, we would like to be fair to them. And at some point, you mentioned 30 weeks of doing this. At some point during those 30 weeks, we realized that it makes more sense for the listeners to pay for one service and not two. And you're getting pretty similar stuff. I mean, we're speaking very off the cuff about cases. We're going more into our personal feelings about them and more into our personal lives with both the Crypt and Hidden Opinions. And why not combine the two so that you're not paying for two services and getting very similar products? It didn't sit well for us. So we worked with our partners at Glassbox and we figured out a way to make this make more sense. And, we'll work through it together as a family of creators and supporters.
And also now that we're doing one of these instead of two of these per week, the one show is better than any one show would have been previous to this point, because we have a lot of things to talk about, in which, we're probably going to fill up at least a good 45 minutes today with all these topics that I have in front of me here.
Yes. And, I love making restaurant comparisons when we're talking about products that people pay for. And you always get a better product when you go to a restaurant that has a small menu. You always go back there. You
Good analogy.
Right? You have a menu with, a few things. It changes occasionally, but it's a big red flag if you go to a restaurant that has 100 things on the menu. I mean, you can't keep things fresh that long.
Shots fired at Cheesecake Factory.
Shots fired at Cheesecake Factory.
And all diners.
Well, that's a diner. That's different than a restaurant. A diner, they if they're a busy diner, they're turning over very fast. So I will and those, you can keep eggs for a lot longer. But my point is that our menu is pared down so that we can give a better product. And we don't let it sit in the walk-in for 2 months.
Wait, can you keep going with this analogy?
I can't. Oh my! Do you want me to?
And so $2.99 per month gets you all of our ad-free episodes, which is exciting. And I think some people just want it ad-free. Like, they're probably not too interested in the bonus episodes. But if you are interested in the bonus episodes, tier 2 for $5 a month. That's it. That's all we're asking for. $5 a month. You get these bonus episodes and you get ad-free content. Everything ad-free. So this is Yeah.
I'm ready to bear all. I'm ready to tell all of my secrets.
Whoa, keep the sweater on.
Oh, I will.
Oh, boy.
It's fall.
I have to just raise one quick point about people wanting ad-free content. I will say, if you want that ad-free content because you don't want to hear the ads, which are extremely entertaining, you might still want to listen to those ads, but still scroll down in the episode notes. Still go to our show notes because we do endorse products that are really good. And recently we've gotten some really, really good products. So, I mean, the holidays are coming up. Who doesn't want a pair of Vessi shoes? Literally the best shoes I've ever owned.
Yeah.
That was a freebie.
Stay tuned for the mid-roll.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program. Let's get into some of the cases we've been discussing lately. A couple of weeks ago now on Missing, we released an episode about the disappearance of Mike Montijo, who was 55 years old when he went missing from Colleton County, South Carolina on January 26th, 2020. And we spoke about this a little bit last week, but probably not enough. Just want to mention that the circumstances are suspicious per our investigators at PIs for the Missing, and they have been really desperately trying to get law enforcement to take their information and work the case. And currently there is a GoFundMe out there for Mike Montijo, and you can search it on GoFundMe, Mike Montijo. It's billboard and or attorney fees. I'll put a link here in this this episode so you can click on the show notes. But if you can donate, that would be great. It's $800 has been raised so far, but they need more for what they're trying to accomplish. And we spoke with Mike's sister in the episode just a week or two ago, Belinda, and she was great. And, it seems like the people who were living with Mike at the time, his wife doesn't seem to be pushing right now. And I think that is one reason why it seems that law enforcement in that area isn't really pushing as well right now. So I think the billboard is to sort of reinvigorate the local law enforcement and maybe Mike's family, who kind of inexplicably aren't pushing anymore to find this missing veteran who, reportedly, I guess wandered away from his house at some point.
I think this conversation that we had with Belinda and Lou was one of the more eye-opening ones in terms of a family member coming to the reality that their loved one is missing and all of the things that contribute to that. You mentioned that he was a veteran. He, by all accounts, I don't think that he was diagnosed with PTSD, but during that conversation, we heard Lou explain some of the things that he was a part of, and he was in the Navy for 20 years. He did some other operations for the government, and it was alluded to that he had seen some things. So you have his service, potential PTSD. He was an alcoholic, too. And all of these things factored into his disappearance. And you could just read it in Belinda's body language and what she was saying, that I think there was a time where a lot of his family and a lot of the people that he knew were just in denial of his issues, including his wife. And it's easier to back away from that, and probably, and I don't mean to sound crass, but probably a bit of a relief to have this have this burden out of their lives. And I hate saying that, because I don't think that that is exactly what should be done at all. So it's very nuanced. And every time we have these conversations with family members, I start to realize more and more, every single time there's more of these details that come out that are very specific to their circumstances. And they're so nuanced. And so many times, I don't know, media, us, other people that we know just paint like a broad brush. Well, because we covered this case, this one has similar circumstances, so it has to be like this. every episode we do is an educational journey for us.
Yeah, and quite literally viewed as on a case-by-case basis. You know, I know it's kind of a cliche, but we've literally used that at PIs for the Missing, like in board meetings, because it's the only way to say it.
But you have to keep that fresh too, because when those statements start becoming cliches, they start losing their meaning. Jen, it looks like you need to say something. It looks like you're cataloging. I get nervous when I'm talking, and then I'm looking at Jen, and she has this look, and I'm like, oh no, I'm saying the wrong thing.
What look am I giving? Oh,
That disapproving look.
yeah.
that sweater wearing
Tisk.
look. Tisk.
Sitting over here with snapping a ruler in my hand. Yeah, I was just thinking like maybe that's where that phrase comes from, case by case basis.
PIs for the Missing.
From maybe law enforcement or like prosecutors or something. It's like you literally can't handle each case in the same way as you did the last one.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. We also got a lot of great comments on the Mike Montijo YouTube video. A lot of people were being very supportive.
I love it. I love it. Been trying to make an effort to tell people to comment on YouTube or wherever, because family members read this, and we went years, releasing these episodes, and we'll look at the YouTube comments, and a family member will comment, and then right around there are these like comments that family members shouldn't read. So if you want to critique us and like our interview style or whatever, shoot us an email. You can go to the website and shoot us an email. But if you want to comment on something in regards to the content that we put out there, be supportive if you know that the family is going to be reading it.
Yeah, exactly. And here's some comments. Luciana on YouTube says, "My heart breaks for Mike's family. Thank you for covering this case." And I don't know this for a fact, but I think this is the same Luciana who's on Twitter as vegananthro_, who tweets weekly about missing persons cases and unsolved homicides. She tags us frequently as well. So thank you, Luciana. We appreciate that, and we appreciate your tweets as well.
And if you're not the same person, we appreciate both of you.
It's got to be the same. And Holland Oates, Holland being one word, says, "This is infuriating and heartbreaking. This man did so much for his country, his city, and yet it seems like the effort to find him is so little. Not even his spouse seems to be all that bothered. Thank goodness for the love of his sister and her determination to find out anything about where he is. I hope that there are answers and actions soon." Thank you, Holland.
I feel like I need to make a Holland Oates reference, but it might be completely ill-timed, but good name.
Yeah, it is a good name, and it's there. They use a picture of Holland Oates, the band, in their logo there.
I love it. What a good sense of humor. They have the first name is Holland and the last name is Oates. I just need to make sure people understand that they made their name Holland, last name Oates.
It's excellent. Yeah, and there's like quite a few comments about people saying, like this man sacrificed for his country. He's a veteran, and we let him down. I think like particularly with veterans who have given so much of their lives to like keep us safe, and the minute they need help, we let them down. So I think there's like a general feeling of just like, oh geez, if anybody is going to have resources devoted to them and is missing, it should be this guy,
Yeah. Lou said it as well, and it was one of those Lou-isms that came up right at the end, and he just dropped it, and it was like, that is the truth of this whole matter, and it was not thought of during that entire conversation until Lou said it.
Yeah, and he mentioned that Mike was a submariner in the Navy, which I was doing a little bit of research on, and he worked on submarines. Really cool.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I agree.
Stressful.
I agree, but yeah, I mean, he dedicated a lot of his life to this country, and worked on submarines in the Navy, which is kind of cool. And Lou mentioned it sort of as like, well, this is a kind of a tight knit group of folks. So if you're out there, Navy vet or currently in the Navy, maybe you were a submariner, send us a message, leave a comment on YouTube, or retweet. I think that and any of this helps. Or donate,
donate,
to the GoFundMe. Yeah.
Leave a comment, donate, show your support for Belinda, and yeah, just show your support for your fellow human. And I think, Jen, did you say like they're forgotten about?
I mean, not explicitly, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to make clear, like, we're not saying it goes back beyond the disappearance of him. It goes back to the first time that he exhibited signs of PTSD and alcoholism.
Mhm.
And he was trying to quit. He was trying to recover. He was trying to make the meetings and not drink anymore. And he couldn't do it. And during the time that he disappeared, he was on the wagon. And it's one of the hardest things to do as a human being to I mean I sound like I'm just pod-splaining right now to get off of your addiction when it's become so like embedded in your being as like as this disease, and it's gripping you. I mean, back when that started, that's when he was forgotten about, you know? You got the support of Alcoholics Anonymous, like that's great. But like I'm sure he had family and friends that were supporting him in it. And I'm sure it must have been exhausting for him and for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk a lot about, addiction issues, the disease of addiction on missing, because it comes up a lot in these missing persons cases. I think it's important to mention, especially in Mike Montijo's case, that like an addiction or alcoholism is an expression of pain. Like this was a man in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, Lance. It takes an enormous feat of strength and like the support of a family and a community to dig yourself out of that hole. And it's just like that much more sad, I guess, that he was making such an effort and then this happens to him.
Yeah. And not just specifically with Mike's disappearance, but you said that a lot of the people that we speak about have addictions, and they all have family members that are trying to figure out a way to cope with that. And I mean, there's an organization. There's the meetings that you can go to for family members of people who are addicted, and there's a reason for that, because you don't know how to, as a family member, you're not sure how to cope with that and how to handle that person. And you let your emotions get the better of you sometimes, and you get frustrated, and it's easier to walk away from that. So it's this whole thing, like it's this whole, and not just specifically to Mike or specifically to anyone specific case. It's the entirety of it. Like the entirety of a family member trying to handle their addicted loved one and then getting frustrated, and soon you just don't see it as like this person can't stop. It's just, it becomes more of a selfish thing. It's so painful. Like the whole thing is so painful, and we hardly ever talk about like how the family member reacts. I guess my point is like, I don't want to classify family members as not doing something because they don't want something to be figured out in their father, mother, brother's case. They've been exhausted for like the majority of their life because of this disease in the situation of someone who is addicted. Mm-hmm. So any non-action from a family member has to be taken with a grain of salt. And you can see it in Belinda's conversation. You can see it, like she's coming around to figure, like she's coming to terms with it all.
Yeah, that's a really heart-wrenching story and episode, so we definitely invite you to check that one out.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program. Recently, we also spoke about another disappearance case. It's Elliot Scott Roberts from Caryville, Campbell County, Tennessee. He was 50 at the time of his disappearance, 5'7", 125 pounds. Last seen on March 3rd, 2021, being dropped off at a church in this town of Caryville, and then he was reported missing about 2 weeks later, and he has not been seen. In the episode, we did speak about a web sleuth's comment that was made, and it's possible that this was made from someone who actually was on a search for Scott, because there was a pretty large scale search around that church. And so someone did write that they found shirt and pants with a wallet, but no other trace of Scott has been found. And, it's unclear if that's an actual comment from someone from that search as well.
Yeah, and I think Scott also struggled with alcohol as well, which kind of is a interesting connection between he and Mike's case. So we got a comment on the Scott Roberts case on YouTube by Jeff Barnes, and he said, "Is the original missing persons report available to put on NamUs and the Charlie Project?" Which I don't know if the report has been FOIA'd at all, but potentially we might be able to work on that at PIs for the Missing. He goes on to say, "I looked at the location of the church and it is actually outside of Caryville, nothing close around it. Could there have been a 12-step meeting going on there that he was attending? What time of day was it? And did the witness see anyone else at the church at the time?" And I thought that was a really kind of astute observation because, I mean, AA meetings frequently are held in churches, especially if there's not many community buildings in this particular area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's especially insightful to mention what time of day it was, and did the witness report seeing anyone else at the church when they dropped off Scott. Unfortunately, we don't know who the witness is. So it's not like we can ask that witness. I think that person's probably been spoken to by the authorities, and they purposefully left that person unnamed for their own privacy, is my guess.
Yeah. Very coincidentally, right after we recorded the Scott Roberts case out of Tennessee, I was driving from Ohio to North Carolina and passed right through this area, right over the stinking creek that was, which we had a hard time saying without laughing. But
well, we had to figure out if it was even a typo.
Yeah, right. Oh no, it's real.
No,
it's not
real.
very stinky though.
Huh, well, that's disappointing.
It's a really beautiful area. I mean, you got the Smoky Mountains kind of starting there, and all the fall foliage was gorgeous. But yeah, I mean, it's not an understatement to say that this is a rural place. There is very little, like the maybe one little strip mall, and then mostly just like depressed looking buildings, abandoned buildings alongside the highway there. But yeah, I think Caryville is just one of those places that, there's just not a whole lot there, maybe not a whole lot of resources for law enforcement either.
Yeah, definitely. And we did get a message from John Fariso, who we've had on the show, who worked at the NYPD and the Missing Persons Squad, specifically as a detective. Pretty cool career he had. You're talking about what we do. So anytime he lends his expertise, I think it's always extra interesting. But he said that he had worked on a missing persons case where a person visited a church right before they committed suicide. And he really just mentioned that as an observation, and none of us mentioned that in the recording. I don't know if that didn't dawn on us, or we just didn't want to be that dark about it. But I do think that's a good observation, because we don't have any better reason why he went to the church. We just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I the reason for going to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting is really good. Going to a church, if you're planning your suicide, that's a pretty legit reason. The thing about us not mentioning it is just there was very, very, very little information on him overall. So we had very little content to generate a theory in the first place. Like, was he depressed? Was he in financial trouble? There was so little information, and we ended up talking about ginseng instead of whether this guy was depressed or not. And I would love to know if there's any family members or friends in that area that spoke with him prior to him being dropped off at the church, and perhaps he gave them some of his belongings. Because when people are planning to do this, oftentimes they will start giving their stuff away. Maybe he said something. Maybe he gave away, his hunting rifle, for example, or something like that. Something that meant something to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a really good indicator of one step closer to committing suicide.
Yeah, additionally, another kind of hallmark that somebody might be planning a suicide is that their mood lifts. Like if they had been depressed and then they finally make the decision to commit suicide, they will get happy right before, because like there's an end in sight for them. So if any friends or family of Elliot Scott Roberts experienced these things, like I think that's an important piece of the story.
Agreed. And I wonder how he would have done it and why his body hasn't been found.
Yeah. I mean, it's a vast wilderness. I think it's definitely possible. If he had walked into the woods any distance, it would be quite hard to find him.
Yeah.
And we spoke this week, actually, we just released the episode today about the Jane Doe, formerly known as Little Miss Nobody, and the abduction of Sharon Lee Gallegos, which is, in fact, now the same case because, we talk about it in the episode. But the Jane Doe, Little Miss Nobody, Sharon's body was found in Congress, Arizona, but she went missing from Alamogordo, New Mexico, about 10 days before her body was found.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That was a hard case to talk through. And it was so kind of terrifying too. What she had gone through, what this little girl had gone through, being stalked by this woman. It was really scary. I do want to talk about like our conversation before, like off mic before we started recording, because we weren't sure what to like title this episode. Like Little Miss Nobody is kind of a cool title. Like it's kind of like intriguing and mysterious.
It's eye-catching, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But then I don't know, we all also thought, well, it's like, well, she's been identified. Like she has a name. She's not Little Miss Nobody anymore. We kind of debated that back and forth.
And to quote Kristen Middleman from Othram, she's Little Miss Nobody no more, which during the conversation that we just had with her, which we'll be releasing soon, they're the organization. I mean, everybody knows what Othram does. They solve, they identify people. They solve cases daily, multiple cases daily, and they're the ones that really put the gears in motion to make this happen. And yeah, she said that, and I got chills when she said that. And they're actually changing the headstone for her, so it doesn't say Little Miss Nobody anymore.
Oh man, that's a much better title. Little Miss Nobody no more.
Right.
I wish we.
We'd have to pay Othram for that.
Yeah, they'd get royalties.
Well, so I guess if we had named it Sharon Lee Gallegos, it would have implied, based on our previous titling, it would imply that she's still missing, right?
Right.
Which she isn't. Part of the mystery has been resolved, but there are still suspects out there. The case is not solved. She was abducted and murdered. And there's some pretty good description. And actually, Kristen gave a little bit more than I think what we mentioned in our episode. She had said that this woman in the green car knocked on the door, which I don't recall mentioning in our episode, that she actually went so far to, I think Kristen mentioned she spoke with Sharon's mom.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, stalking, casing, whatever you want to use, that is what this family was doing. And she did say that there were new leads because of this identification. So apparently they're still working on this. And she did mention the two children, saying that the kids that were playing with Sharon at the time of her abduction did see two children in the back of that green car. So now you connect those two sightings, the one at the church the Sunday before and the actual abduction. And now this was actually, it sounds like this was actually a family driving around that abducted Sharon Lee Gallegos. So it was just a 4-year-old at the time of her disappearance.
Or the other children were also abducted? Like, who's to
Oh,
say that
it's
those were
yeah.
their
That
kids?
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's just I meant it's a group. I'm not saying that
Yeah,
they pulled her in or
right.
anything like that. I'm just saying, it occurred to or my first thought, like it was the first time we were talking about this, was that this was they abducted Sharon to be a part of whatever they were doing. Like they wanted to keep Sharon, but something went wrong, obviously somewhere along the way.
Yeah, so bizarre. I think we did actually talk about this woman, this suspect, coming to the house and speaking to Sharon's aunt,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
because she was asking questions about the layout of the house, like who sleeps where and all that stuff.
Yep.
I think
Right.
I think we did cover that part.
Hmm.
This is much bigger. Would either of you be surprised if this turned into something much bigger, like a more widespread network of abductions? Because I mean, this seems like a pro job. Asking the
I
family where people sleep, stalking, other kids in the car. I'm not saying like a vast network that spans the entire country, but like that area. Would you be surprised if more cases started coming up about kids being abducted? Like,
I wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if there were other reports about this family, but I would be surprised if this or this group of people were connected with other people who were abducting people. It seems like a sloppy job to me, to be honest. Like they're knocking on the door, they're asking where she sleeps. Like I think they were really trying to case and stalk until the time where they actually got the chance to abduct her, and then he drove like a bat out of hell, so things changed at that point. So I don't think they were like trying to, I don't know, be mysterious or actually good at what they did,
Yeah, it wasn't a very sophisticated way to abduct a child that would suggest like, a professional thing. I don't know. Um but it was also like a product of the time too. It's like this was before the whole stranger danger thing that seeped into the public consciousness. So people really didn't know to look out for behavior like this. I mean, maybe it was a more trusting time per se, especially if it was a woman who came to the door. I think woman to woman, like I wouldn't necessarily, even today, I wouldn't necessarily be like suspicious of another woman walking up, but yeah, yeah, not
I don't know. This is
sophisticated.
a good debate to have, because I kind of disagree, and I think that they probably did this before, and I think that this was a lot more organized than we're making it out to be, because they're not looking for cameras, they're not looking for people on their cell phones, they're stalking and grabbing, and because I don't know if anyone knows, but cell phones didn't exist back in 1960.
Yeah. I don't think there's much cameras too, like there's no
Yeah.
ring cams and things
Right.
like that.
So exactly. They're not like, they're brazen because they have no reason to not be brazen, because there's no reason to not want to cover your tracks the best you can.
But I think my point was like they weren't worried about causing a stir after
Yep.
they get her. Like
Yep.
they weren't worried about covering their tracks afterwards.
Yep. You know why? Because they got away with it before. That's what I'm
I
thinking.
mean, maybe they did, but there would be other missing people, and I think you're probably right in that they probably attempted it or cased other families or something like that. But one thing that I noticed in listening to the press conference about the identification of Sharon Lee Gallegos was Sharon's nephew actually spoke, and he said that I forget the nickname that Sharon had, but it was something that meant like light, because she was lighter skinned than the rest of the family, which again occurred to me that maybe this woman who by the description was white, this woman and the man, like they were taking her to be part of whatever family you know what I mean?
Ooh, that introduces a really icky, like a race thing into this whole story too.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, I mean,
They targeted her specifically is again what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah,
For a
I'm
reason.
definitely like apt to believe that those other two children with that family were potentially abducted too. I don't think it was to the end of like selling these children to a sex trade or like some underground whatever in a pizza shop. but but yeah, I think that this couple has definitely done it before, if that's what you're saying, Lance.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
All comes back to Othram, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, without them, this wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have this conversation, and other individuals who, oh my God, it's so creepy to even say, who might have suspected that they weren't a member of the family that they were raised in, might start to think about that a little bit more closely, might start to consider that a little bit more. Like, isn't that a terrifying thing to think about? Like, if you were a child back then in that area, and when you started forming mature thoughts, it starts occurring to you that you don't really look like, or you feel separate from your family, from your parents.
Mm-hmm.
That is a creepy thought. I have the other inclination. I think those two kids were part of that family. That's just my guess. I mean, we could look, like, I wonder, we should do some more research and see if there were if there's like a freckle-faced boy, like somewhere between 1955 and 1960 that disappeared in America.
Totally, yeah.
I am not Googling that though. Very bad things happening if I were to Google that. But it's a great point. I mean,
yeah.
I wonder if our friends over at Uncovered have information on that.
Well, if there was an abduction, then there should be some reports out there. Should be in the Charlie Project. Should be some media about this. A different kidnapped boy or a different missing boy from that time period.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are we thinking, that the kids in the back seat were probably around the same age or a little bit older? They would probably have to be a little bit older, right? Because they were actually seen in the car, meaning like they were bigger. Pretty detailed to say freckled.
Yeah, he must have had freckles that stood out. 1951 or 1952 Dodge or Plymouth, a green vehicle, I guess. So
pretty popular back then. I looked that up, like the most popular cars back then. So that was one of the more popular cars. It was like that, mid-range affordable car for a family for the most part. Not showy or anything like that. But I wonder, those two kids.
It's a good point. I mean,
they're probably
whatever,
in their 70s
60.
by now. Yeah, 60s, 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
like, how were you raised?
I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of like weird distant memory, like of the time they had a different sibling for a few days,
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be super bizarre.
It sure would be. And today, as we sit here recording this on October 27th, it's a Thursday, we have 3 missing interviews today with moms of missing people. Today, on this very day, we're actually going to have to break up interviews because we're double booked. That's how many moms of missing folks we're talking to today.
It's kind of sad. Think about it that way.
I mean, it is, yeah. And on one hand, it's great that people want to talk about this. They're working through a lot of pain. We're not talking about missing people from 1960 in these scenarios either. So the pain is still fresh and raw, and we have to take advantage of the opportunities that we can when they're available to talk. So yeah, we double booked ourselves because what are you going to do? Tell the mom of a missing person that you have to work around our schedule. It's sort of like you take it as you can get it. And the way that these came to us is just wonderful. The one of them came to us through TikTok. The other one came to us through Obsess Fest, through a connection at Obsess Fest. So fantastic the way this happens, the way this community communicates.
Yeah. Anita is one of the moms. She is Pepita Redhair's mom, and we recently spoke with Christopher Walker, who is the narrator of Disappeared, and he actually wanted to talk about Pepita's case. and he brought it to us. So that episode or that conversation is going to be brought to the missing feed very soon, and then the interview with Pepita's mom, Anita, will be coming to the feed soon as well. But make sure to check out our episode that was released yesterday on Crawlspace with Christopher Walker, the voice of Disappeared. We talked to him a little bit about his career, but we also talked to him about the disappearance and death of Mitrice Richardson, who he also brought that case to us as something he wanted to talk about.
Yeah, definitely listen to what Chris thinks about Mitrice's story, because that is, God, we're at almost 45 minutes already, and not a lot of room to get into the details of her death and the way law enforcement, specifically that area, the police, the way they handled that night and handled her is inexcusable. So
yeah,
listen to that episode.
Yeah. And so that's one mom we're speaking to today. We're also speaking with Devontae Morgan's mom, Terry. And yeah, you mentioned TikTok. She messaged us on TikTok. And Devontae Morgan went missing on May 5th, 2020. He's 5'11", 165 pounds. And he went missing from Mount Shasta, California. So I'll be speaking with Terry later today. And then we also are speaking with Robin, Mark Dunn's mom. Mark Dunn went missing from Phoenix, Arizona on March 18th, 2017. Was 24 years old, or is 24 years old now, 6'3", 210 pounds. So those will be coming to the missing feed soon as well.
So you'll be speaking with Terry, and Jen and I will be speaking with Anita King.
Yep, and then Lance and I will be speaking with Robin. So we've really for our 4 missing recordings today, we've broken up the distribution of Crawlspace Media employees so that it's not doubled in any recording today.
Yeah, for sure.
And Jen, Mark Dunn's case came into private investigations for the missing, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, a little bit of an announcement on that front. As we sort of demonstrated, very, very busy in the Crawlspace studios right now. So I think I'm going to be stepping back from being the research coordinator of PIs for the missing. We're still, like, Crawlspace as a media company will still be there to work hand in hand with PIs for the missing. We're still going to be covering cases that the private investigators send over to us to help raise awareness. We're still going to be talking about the organization, still trying to raise awareness and funds to help this organization, because they do such wonderful work. But as far as my involvement in the research department, yeah, I'm going to take a step back because I've been, a busy little bee working on our new show called Dark Valley.
Yes. Yeah, cannot wait for the premiere of Dark Valley. We spoke about it at length at Obsessed Fest just a few weeks ago, and people are really interested in it. So, yeah, really excited about Dark Valley coming in 2023.
And just a big thank you for your work that you did at PIs for the Missing. I know that we talk about this, we spoke about it off the air, but just a huge thank you for the volunteer work that you did and bringing together the researchers and guiding them through the process. And you did say you're taking a step back, but I do want to make clear that you still are producing for Missing. You're still working on these missing person stories and contributing to the overall product that is put out there to raise the visibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once our new show comes out, I'll have all the space and time to jump back into producing Missing and keep covering these little known cases.
All right, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed what you heard here today. If you are a premium subscriber, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. If you're not a premium subscriber yet, check it out, missing.supportingcast.fm. We will be reading our subscribers' names on the show at some point. But as of right now, all we've gotten is a list of email addresses, which Lance wanted to broadcast all of them. But
I thought that would be the most responsible thing to do.
Yeah, and their social security numbers.
Yeah, that doesn't even matter anymore. I'll give my social security. I'm just kidding. I won't. But there's a lot of really cool things that are coming with this subscription service that we've worked on making sure things are possible and streamlined and, not confusing for the people who are signing up. So the text club, you can opt into a text club and we will send you updates on new episodes and if we're doing live events, virtual or in person. So that's a really cool feature, and we're not going to bombard you with texts every day. It's only going to be because you've signed up and you know what's coming and you just get these reminders. Maybe we'll send you a good morning once in a while. Just
and then
just for
also,
fun.
one at like 2 a.m. saying you up.
Who's up?
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate you listening.